Chapter 19 of Mapping the Human Mind. The Scientific Revolution and Religious Challenge. The Telescope that Toppled Heaven. It's the winter of 1609. The air in Padua was sharp with cold, but inside a modest study tucked above the university's cloisters, a quiet revolution was unfolding. A man leaned over a long brass tube, hands steady despite the tremor of something he could not yet name. Galileo Galilei, a professor of mathematics, had taken a device known mostly for maritime spotting and pointed it towards the stars. He hadn't invented the telescope, but he had refined it with care and precision, and now, as he pressed his eye to the lens and steadied his breath, the sky began to unravel. The moon, long thought to be a flawless heavenly sphere, revealed itself as a rugged landscape. Mountains cast shadows, valleys cut deep into its surface. It was not divine and unblemished, but eerily familiar, Earth-like. Then came Jupiter. Through the telescope's narrow window, Galileo saw something even more astonishing. Tiny stars, moving not across the heavens, but around the planet itself. Night after night he tracked them. But they weren't stars, they were moons, and they orbited Jupiter, not Earth. Venus too betrayed the old order. Galileo watched its phases shift just like the moon's, revealing a path that circled the sun. A planet dancing to a different rhythm than anyone had dared emit aloud. With each new observation, the ancient model, where Earth sat immobile at the centre of a perfect crystalline cosmos, began to crack. The Aristotelian universe, polished and eternal, gave way to something messier, more dynamic. A cosmos that didn't care for human symmetry, a universe in motion. I do not feel obliged to believe that the same God who has endowed us with senses, reason and intellect has intended us to forego their use, and by some other means to give us knowledge which we can attain by them, Galileo wrote. This seemingly modest statement held revolutionary weight. It suggested that human observation and reason, not tradition or scriptural authority, were the right arbiters of cosmic truth. In 1610 he published Sidereus Nuncius, the Starry Messenger, a slender volume that documented his discoveries. But Galileo wasn't just aiming his telescope at the heavens, he was aiming it at the fragile scaffolding of inherited knowledge. If the universe no longer revolved around us, perhaps neither did truth itself. The reaction was swift and volatile. In 1616, the Church condemned the Copernican model as heretical and forbade Galileo from teaching it, but he did not relent. When he later published Dialogue concerning the two chief world systems, defending heliocentrism through a fictionalized debate, the message was unmistakable. He was summoned before the Roman Inquisition. The trial of Galileo in 1633 represents more than historical drama. It embodies a fundamental clash between ways of knowing. Forced to kneel before the church authorities, the 69-year-old Galileo formally recanted his support for the Copernican system, allegedly muttering afterwards, "E pur si muove," and yet it moves. Whether he actually spoke these words is doubtful, but they capture the essential tension of the moment. Empirical reality versus institutional authority. This watershed moment revealed that the universe might not care about human doctrines, that planets would continue their paths regardless of theological pronouncements. Nature, viewed through the lens, appeared cold, indifferent, and unmoved by tradition. The heavens no longer spoke the language of angels and divine purpose. They spoke of mathematics, motion, and material reality. The cognitive shift wasn't merely intellectual, it was existential. If Earth was simply one planet among many, circling an ordinary star in an ordinary galaxy, what became of humanity's special place in creation? The psychological impact rippled far beyond astronomy, challenging the entire framework through which Europeans had understood their cosmic significance. The weight of deep time. If Galileo removed us from the centre of the universe, geology removed us from its timeline. We find no vestige of a beginning, wrote James Hutton, a Scottish natural philosopher now regarded as the father of modern geology. No prospect of an end. With those words, he shattered not only the biblical chronology, but human temporal intuition itself. In 1788, standing at Sicker Point on the Scottish coast, James Hutton gazed at a jagged seam in the cliffs where ancient tilted rock strata collided with younger horizontal layers. A fracture in stone that told a story no scripture had prepared him for. This appeared at first to be a geological curiosity, but it was in truth a revelation. The earth, he realised, had passed through vast cycles of upheaval, erosion and renewal, epochs layered silently beneath his feet. His colleague John Playfair later wrote, "The mind seemed to grow giddy by looking so far into the abyss of time. It wasn't metaphor, it was cognitive vertigo, the raw disorientation of realising that human history was barely a footnote in a story billions of years long." Geological time didn't just stretch the imagination, it strained the brain itself. Today, neuroscience shows that our minds process different timescales using distinct neural circuits, meaning deep time literally bends our perception. We are creatures evolved for moments and seasons, not millennia. Yet, slowly, a new framework emerged. Charles Lyell expanded on Hutton's vision, arguing that Earth's history could be read through the same slow forces we observe today: wind, water, pressure, decay. No sudden cataclysms from heaven, no divine resets, just time, endless, patient, and unimaginably vast. This quiet revolution struck at the heart of religious chronology, where theologians like Bishop Ussher had once calculated Earth's creation to a specific evening in 4004 BCE. Geology now revealed a planet that was not thousands but millions and eventually billions of years old. What did it mean for a worldview that placed humanity at the centre of creation? If the Earth had existed for eons before we arrived, were we still the purpose of it all? If mountains rose and fell without divine command, where was God's hand in the landscape? And then came the fossils, layer after layer of vanished creatures, each embedded in ancient rock like a forgotten chapter. Zoologist Georges Cuvier showed that some were species no longer found on Earth. They were extinct, gone, as if creation itself had a memory and a graveyard. But the most unsettling revelation had yet to come. The animal mirror. If Copernicus displaced us spatially and Hutton temporally, Darwin dislodged the soul. In 1859, Charles Darwin dropped the equivalent of an intellectual meteor with "On the Origin of Species." His theory of natural selection didn't just challenge biblical chronology, it reframed humanity's place in the cosmos. No longer divine exceptions, we were now part of the animal kingdom, shaped by blind processes with no grand narrative or predetermined goal. The mechanism behind Darwin's theory made it even more unsettling. Life didn't unfold by divine design or cosmic intention, it evolved through variation, struggle, and chance. Creatures with useful traits survived, those without didn't. Over time, that simple, merciless process sculpted all of the complexity of life on Earth. No guiding hand, no ultimate plan, just survival, reproduction, and the endless turning of time. The famous 1860 Oxford debate put the cultural clash on full display, also adding a touch of Victorian comedy. Bishop Samuel Wilberforce, confident and cutting, asked Thomas Huxley whether his ape ancestry came through his grandmother or his grandfather. Huxley didn't miss a beat. He said he'd rather be descended from an ape than from a man who used wit to belittle reasoned discussion. Somewhere between a scientific symposium and a roast battle, the age of evolutionary controversy had arrived. Beyond challenging religious accounts of creation, Darwin's theory posed profound moral and philosophical questions. If human minds evolved through natural selection, what became of free will, moral reasoning, and spiritual capacity? If our noblest traits emerged from the same processes that shaped predator-prey relationships, what foundation remained for human dignity and ethical frameworks? Darwin himself understood the magnitude of what he was proposing. In his notebooks he wrote, "Man in his arrogance thinks himself a great work, worthy of the interposition of a deity. More humble, and I think truer, to consider him created from animals." This wasn't just a biological reclassification, it was an existential reshuffling of our place in the order of things, one that continues to ripple through philosophy, ethics, and theology. The ground beneath us had shifted. Humanity was no longer the centre of creation, nor the pinnacle of design. And as telescopes peered deeper into the sky, that sense of dislocation only widened. What once felt like a cosmos built with us in mind began to stretch, fragment, and multiply, revealing a universe more vast and indifferent than anyone had imagined. The silence between galaxies. The medieval cosmos had a throne for angels. Our dark matter has unanswered emails. While Darwin was upending biological hierarchies, astronomers were quietly dismantling spatial ones. In 1923, Edwin Hubble resolved individual stars within the Andromeda Nebula, revealing it as a separate galaxy, far beyond the Milky Way. With that single observation, the known universe shattered its boundaries. No longer a lone island of stars, but among billions, scattered across unimaginable distances. Then, in 1929, Hubble delivered an even more startling revelation. These galaxies were moving away from each other at speeds proportional to their distance. The universe wasn't static, it was expanding. Working backwards from this expansion led to an inescapable conclusion. The universe had a beginning, what would later be called the Big Bang, approximately 13.8 billion years ago. The Copernican principle, first proposed centuries earlier, suggested that Earth wasn't the centre of the universe. By now, it had become something far more than astronomical adjustment. It was a metaphysical rupture, one that stripped humanity of any privileged position. We were no longer central. No longer exceptional, just one species on a small planet spinning through a vast, indifferent cosmos. Carl Sagan, the astronomer who gave science the soul, would later call it a pale blue dot, a lonely speck floating in a sea of stars. This expanding cosmic scale sparked what psychologists call cosmic perspective taking, a shift in awareness that reframes human concerns within far broader spatial and temporal dimensions. Astronauts have described this from orbit as the overview effect, a sudden, visceral sense of planetary unity, fragility, and insignificance. And with that perspective came unsettling questions. If God created all of this, billions of galaxies, each with billions of stars, was it still reasonable to believe that divine attention focused on just one species, on one planet, in one corner of the cosmos? If the universe is that vast, could we really be alone? Where are the voices in the void? What becomes of human exceptionalism in a reality where light from different galaxies takes billions of years just to reach us? We had been decentered in space, displaced in time, recast as animals, but the final dislocation was the most intimate of all. The soul under the scalpel. Where earlier scientific revolutions suggested we think like machines, neuroscience proposed that our thoughts are machines. The development of neuroscience presented perhaps the most intimate challenge to religious frameworks by suggesting that consciousness, emotion, moral reasoning, and even spiritual experience might arise from physical processes in the brain rather than an immaterial soul. When physician Paul Broca identified a specific brain region responsible for speech production in 1861, he demonstrated that a distinctly human capacity, language, depended on physical brain tissue. When neurologist John Hewlings Jackson documented how epileptic seizures progressed through the brain in the 1870s, he showed that even complex psychological experiences could be triggered by electrical activity in neural tissue. These discoveries challenged dualistic frameworks that separated mind and body, soul and brain. If damaging specific brain regions could eliminate specific mental capacities, what role remained for an immaterial soul? If personality could change dramatically after brain injury, as is the famous case of Phineas Gage, whose character altered profoundly after an iron rod damaged his frontal lobe, how could the soul be the seat of personhood? Modern neuroimaging has intensified these questions by visualizing brain activity during experiences once considered purely spiritual or metaphysical. When functional MRI studies show distinct neural activity during meditation, prayer, or mystical experiences, they raise questions about whether these states represent contact with transcendent reality or are entirely generated by the brain itself. The implications extend beyond individual spiritual experience to religious concepts of free will and moral responsibility. If decisions can be predicted from brain activity before a person becomes consciously aware of choosing, as some neuroscientific studies suggest, what becomes of moral agency? If chemical interventions can profoundly alter personality, beliefs, and values, what constitutes the authentic self? Reforging the sacred. The diversity of religious responses to scientific revolutions reveals something vital. Faith doesn't simply retreat in the face of new knowledge, it evolves. Sometimes defensively, sometimes creatively, but always in dialogue with the world that seeks to understand it. Pierre Teilhard de Chardin, a Jesuit priest and paleontologist, reimagined evolution as a spiritual ascent towards higher consciousness. Rather than resisting science, he wove it into a cosmic vision, framing human thought as part of a planetary layer of awareness he called the noosphere. At the other end of the spectrum, scientific creationism emerged not as a return to ancient belief, but as a modern counter-narrative. In the Genesis Flood 1961, Henry Morris and John Whitcomb constructed an entire alternative cosmology, one that mimicked the tone and structure of scientific argument while defending a literal reading of the Bible. Their goal wasn't to reject science outright, but to co-opt its authority in defence of Scripture. Others, like Catholic philosopher Jacques Maritain, explored how long-standing theological frameworks, such as Thomism, could absorb and adapt to scientific paradigms without collapsing. Modern psychology helps explain these varying responses. Between these poles, some sought genuine integration. One striking example is Pope John Paul II, who in 1996 stated that evolution is more than a hypothesis. For a global religious figure, it signalled more than acceptance. It reflected a growing willingness to see science not as a threat to faith, but as a path to deeper understanding. Others, like Catholic philosopher Jacques Maritain, explored how long-standing theological frameworks, such as Thomism, could absorb and adapt to scientific paradigms without collapsing. Modern psychology helps explain these varying responses. Research into identity protective cognition suggests that when core beliefs are threatened, especially those tied to group belonging, people tend to double down. But when the belief is peripheral, adaptation comes more easily. This may explain why some communities have embraced geological time while rejecting evolution, or welcomed astrophysics while resisting neuroscience. The inner negotiation played out vividly during the 1925 Scopes monkey trial. While remembered as a clash between science and religion, it was just as much a conflict within religion itself, between those open to scientific integration and those defending tradition. That tension remains today. Within the same broad faith traditions, one can find young earth creationists and theistic evolutionists, sometimes sitting in the same pews. But while some hold fast to old narratives, a new kind of reverence was beginning to emerge, not from pulpits or scriptures, but from laboratories and telescopes. Where saints once moved mountains, now quarks dance in probability fields. The devotion of discovery. In a strange twist, the very science that stripped the cosmos of traditional divinity had also reignited awe. When Carl Sagan spoke of star stuff contemplating the stars, or when astrophysicists describe black holes bending time, there's something unmistakably reverent in the language. It's not the old kind of sacred, but it stirs something primal. This phenomenon reflects what philosophers call the re-enchantment of science. The emergence of scientific understanding itself as a source of wonder, awe, and even spiritual experience. Theoretical physicist Richard Feynman captured this perfectly when he noted that scientific knowledge enhances rather than diminishes his appreciation of a flower. Science knowledge only adds to the excitement, the mystery and the awe of a flower. It only adds, I don't understand how it subtracts, he said. Modern research in positive psychology helps explain this phenomenon. Studies of awe, an emotion sparked by encountering something vast beyond our current understanding, show that it's not limited to religious experiences. People report feeling awe in response to natural beauty, breathtaking art, and scientific discovery alike. Brain scans add another layer. Awe appears to activate areas involved in social connection, self-awareness, and reward. In other words, it alters our sense of scale, temporarily lifting us out of ourselves, no matter the source. This sense of scientific awe often finds expression in what sociologist Raymond Lemieux calls implicit religion, practices and communities that serve spiritual functions without traditional religious identity. Citizen science projects, astronomy clubs, and natural history museums have become gathering places for shared wonder. They foster ethical reflection, ritual-like attentiveness, and collective care for a world we're only beginning to understand. We may no longer be the centre of the universe, but we are, as far as we know, the only species capable of grasping that fact. And in that awareness lies a strange and fragile nobility. As physicist Brian Greene put it, we are the eyes of the universe looking back at itself. It's a perspective that offers meaning, not through divine favour or centrality, but through the simple miracle of consciousness trying to understand its origins. Many contemporary scientists acknowledge this quiet spirituality at the heart of their work. When physicist Carlo Rovelli says that doing theoretical physics feels like touching the hem of reality, or when biologist E.O. Wilson speaks of biophilia as a spiritual bond with living systems, they aren't speaking in metaphor. They're describing a kind of devotion, an emotional posture of reverence that arises from attention, precision, and awe. This evolution of wonder doesn't mark the defeat of religious sentiment, it marks its transformation. The sacred hasn't disappeared, it simply changed address. It now resides in the spiralling arms of galaxies, the elegance of physical laws, the delicate interdependence of ecosystems. Scientific understanding, rather than flattening reality, deepens it, layering complexity with reverence. In this view, the pursuit of knowledge becomes a kind of sacred practice. Peering into a microscope or telescope can feel no less meaningful than gazing into stained glass. Both are acts of seeking, or trying to glimpse something greater than ourselves. Science may not promise salvation or eternal life, but it offers something else. An ever-unfolding story of emergence, intricacy and connection. A story that asks not just what the universe is, but what it means to be aware of it. Here, at the quiet edge between intellect and awe, reason and reverence, the modern mind stands, not looking for a divine plan etched in the stars, but perhaps discovering the sacred in the very act of wondering why they shine. As traditional beliefs fractured under the pressure of science, new systems rose to fill the void, not from the pulpit, but from salons, secret societies, and seances. The spiritual did not vanish. It fragmented, transformed, and reassembled itself in ways both strange and profound. Thank you for listening to Beyond the Narrative.